The Mechanicus Codex is one that is severely lacking for some firepower. A lot of our profiles share a very weak mass of shots, usually ranging below 5 strength and dealing only about 1 damage. There's a lot of utility within our army, which forces us to have a playstyle where we choke out our opponents, but usually see our army whittle down without any meaningful trades. There are, however, our more elite heavy weapon platforms in the forms of the Kataphrons. The Kataphrons are servitors, bound into tank treads with heavy weapons welded into their shoulders. How cool and incredibly fucked up is that? They are the Mechanicus heavy platforms boasting a stat line of 7 toughness, 3+ save with a 6+ invulnerable save, as well as 3 wounds each. They lack, however, in a slow 5-inch move in comparison with their base size, and an OC value of 1. For what they make up for in their firepower and their boastful melee profile, their huge bases make them difficult to move around the board with their slowness, as well as not exactly being the most durable units. We can go over which ones take the most advantage of these upsides and downsides, starting with the Kataphron destroyers. The destroyers are unfortunately one of our least used units in the codex, and over the last couple of data slates have received both points reductions and indirect buffs to their biggest problems. This has not been enough, however, to see them come back as a serious consideration. They currently cost 105 points for 3 or 210 for 6. It's worth noting that you should play the models that you like, and a giant plasma gun always lights me up with the joy of the plasma specialist of the Ryza days. Speaking of plasma, the destroyers can wield a plasma culverin having 36-inch range, 4 shots hitting on 4 up with strength 7, AP 2, and damage 1. You can also choose to overcharge it to increase the strength to 8, the AP to 3, and the damage to 2. Here's where we come across our first problems with the destroyers. Overcharging usually comes with the hazard keyword and deals 3 mortal wounds to a model should you fail and roll a 1. While that chance is fairly low, Kataphrons have exactly 3 wounds and will remove a model per failed roll, and they aren't exactly the most disposable unit. Due to a change in the data slate where a model takes 3 mortal wounds and doesn't just get destroyed, means that taking a Dominus to lead them could negate the mortal wounds with the Dominus's ability to grant the unit a 5+ feel no pain. Even so, this makes investing more points in a fairly subpar unit. They can swap out the Plasma Culverin for a heavy grav cannon with similar range and attacks, strength 6, AP 1, and damage 2. While this profile has anti-vehicle 2+ to punch above their weights with tanks, AP 1 is not a good enough value to realistically threaten tanks, even with damage 2. Besides, we will get into the better variant at shredding tanks apart here in a little bit. The destroyers don't have any melee weapons, but can take an additional small arm to try and peel off the smaller approaching infantry, a standard profile for a flamer and a phosphor blaster, with rather underwhelming stats. These aren't too worth getting into, much like the destroyer's ability Sentinel Directives. This allows the unit to score hits on Overwatch on rolls of 5s and 6s. While this does look very enticing, this is weaker compared to their counterparts, and is only useful when spending 1 CP on Overwatch, and an ability that's so pigeonholed into a reactive ability that incentivizes you to target it with a rather mediocre profile, while also opening up your unit to risk more when shooting overcharged plasma, makes this unit overall rather meek. That's not to say that they can't pull their weight. Earlier today I was listening to the Disgustingly Resilient podcast, where a group of 6 destroyers rolled some hot 18 lethal hits for plasma out of 24 and managed to one-shot a Mortarion, one of the tankiest units in the game, so that's a glowing testament to how these units can still provide dangerous firepower. The better investment in your army is the Kataphron Breachers, boasting the terrifying firepower of our army. While this unit is 160 for 3 or 320 points for 6, taking a sizable chunk of your points in your list building, proper utilization of this unit can very quickly annihilate an unsuspecting opponent in the blink of an eye. This can be attributed to the heavy arc rifle, a devastating profile with 30-inch range, 2 shots hitting at 4+, 8 strength, 2 AP, and a whopping flat 3 damage. While this contains half the amount of shots of the plasma destroyers, they also have rapid fire 2 at 15 inches to double its amount of shooting, and while putting them close to your enemies opens them to charges, the breachers can absolutely hold their own in melee, which we will cover here in a second. The arc rifle also carries anti-vehicle 4+, which can help it punch up against anything higher than toughness 8, and peel apart knight players in particular. The other ranged option is the Torsion Cannon, having 36-inch range, D3 attacks with blast, 6 strength, 2 AP, and a flat 2 damage. While having anti-infantry 2 can help kill elites, the D3 damage can make it a bit swingy, being especially notable in the strength and damage values compared to the arc rifles. The torsion cannon falls short to the heavy arc rifle mainly because the stat increase is worth more than just being able to punch up against elites, when the arc rifle can punch up against armor threats and still be able to kill elites as well. Onto the melee weapons, we have a similar scenario where one is just better than the other. The hydraulic claw is the go-to melee option for the breachers, basically copying the profile of the arc rifles, and as we've covered, they absolutely shred anything in front of them. To be able to shoot arc rifles and then charge your opponents with a profile that already incinerated anything in front of them, damn near impossible to survive for your opponents. To get a full coverage of the melee weapons, the arc claw is weaker in almost all aspects, having 4 attacks, strength 5, AP 1, and 1 damage. Even with anti-vehicle 4, it doesn't help punch a hole into vehicles with only 1 damage and 1 AP, and is weaker into infantry with its lower strength of 5 compared to the hydraulic claw strength 8. For the ability of the breachers, whenever a unit makes an attack, in both melee and range, they can reroll hit rolls of 1. Pretty good already, right? Well, if battle line is within 6 inches of it, they can reroll all hit rolls instead. To be able to negate the +4 weapon skill and ballistic skill that the Admech army got coming into 10th edition, and be able to connect its hit is one of the biggest reasons why this unit is so coveted. It can ensure the damage reliably since it can succeed in its hit rolls and then wound reliably with its high strength, and deal a whopping 3 damage per attack with its decent AP profile, which, when you are within 6 inches of Skitarii, you're probably going to get the extra AP from the Conquer Doctrina as well, stacking up to 3 AP, 3 damage. And again, this is your shooting and your melee. Want to make it even better? Rerolling all hits with this unit being led by a Mechanicus gives them lethal hits and can completely invalidate the toughness of even the biggest monsters in vehicle. Hell, go the extra mile in the Halo's Creed Battleclade and give yourself +5 critical hits and fish those sweet lethals. This unit is a huge threat to any army staring down the wrong side of the little tank boys, and likewise, you should be very careful with them, as they basically define the word glass cannon. The aforementioned Mechanicus can protect them with a once per game +4 invulnerable save, but that won't protect them from all focus fire, so do your due diligence and be smart with this unit, especially considering their big point investment. Kataphrons hold a very important role in our army, as one of the best damaging units in our army. Well, at least the breachers anyway. They can gas up the damage in your army exponentially, but also increase the points of realist quickly. I think that destroyers are slowly getting the support they need as a mid-level damage block for less investment as opposed to its higher level damage counterpart in the breachers. But with more and more changes pumping up our less used units, I'm sure that a purpose to run either or will hopefully come sooner rather than later. You can hardly go wrong with adding a block of either or going to the spam lists that fit well in detachments like the Halo's Creed and the Rad Zone, and to a lesser extent the Data Som Conclave. They can definitely be utilized effectively after some practice to try and understand how to use a unit to its full potential in a tactfully sound way to not get them blasted off the board or stuck behind their slow movement. Thank you for watching this video. If you liked it, please consider liking or subscribing for future content, and checking out some of the past content that covers more of the army and Warhammer as a whole. Thank you very much, I'll see you next time.